Welcome back. How good was the Walter P. Chrysler Museum? Wasn't that something? Well, I've travelled about an hour up the road. You can't come to the United States of America and forget about the mighty Oldsmobile here in Michigan. In fact, I'll take things a step further for you and take you inside the R.E. Olds Transportation Museum. It's also home to the world's largest lug nut. Wow, inside the Olds Transportation Museum, it's amazing. There are thousands of irreplaceable items here in the archives, comprising 52 vehicles that span from 1886 through to 2003. The question is, though, how many of these cars will trigger a memory, put a smile on your face, or leave you in awe? Oh, there were many famous names in NASCAR. One name comes to mind was Dick Passwater. The only thing is, Dick never really won any races because he had to stop too many times for a leak. Okay, here inside the museum we have Dave Paff. How are you, Dave?
I'm great, thank you, Fletch.
That's the way. Now, Dave's a volunteer historian here, does a great job, as they all do. Dave, tell us briefly a bit of history about Ransom Eli Olds. He was a great man.
He was a great man. He came to Lansing with his family when he was 16 years old, and he was working with his father and brother at the P.F. Olds and Son factory here, where they were making steam engines. It was a blacksmith shop, repair shop, it's a general repair shop, that sort of thing. And he began playing around with self-propelled vehicles like people at that time tended to do. And his first vehicle he made was a three-wheel, tiller-steered machine powered by one of the P.F. Olds and Sons steam engines. And he played around with that for 2 or 3 years. It was pretty crude, but it was a start. And he eventually tore it apart, used the pieces to build a four-wheel steam-powered car using 2 of the engines. And this was a much more successful vehicle.
As soon as we walk through the door of the museum, we've got pictures of the original mansion and original furniture out of their original house that apparently got knocked down for a freeway.
That's right. The home was built in 1904 after Mr. Olds and family came back to Lansing from Detroit. And they lived there, he lived there until his death in 1950. A
beautiful picture there of Mr. Olds and his wife and his 2 daughters sitting in the lounge room of the very mansion. An irreplaceable photo. There's also a model here of the mansion as to how it looked. The local people must have been up in arms before that was torn down. It's a shame it wasn't heritage listed.
Well, I don't know if it was or wasn't, but there was a lot of uproar locally, but it went nowhere.
Such a shame. Now, the wisdom of Mr. Olds carried through the 1900s. We progress in vehicles. The story of the miniature car, what's the deal there? It's exactly half the size, Dave.
Well, it's half scale, so it's like an eighth of the volume, you might say. So it looks a lot smaller than half scale. Anyway, Mr. Olds had the factory build that primarily for his grandchildren and the neighborhood kids to play. It's a functioning vehicle, 2-cylinder planetary transmission. So if you're small enough, you could actually drive it. But it went to car shows to promote Rio. It went to various collectors. It ended up in the Barnum and Bailey Circus for a number of years, and it disappeared for a number of years, and eventually it was sold at auction at Pebble Beach and was purchased by the great-great-granddaughter of Mr. Olds, who has it on loan here to us.
And yet you personally are still in contact with some of the Olds family?
The Olds family is very active in the museum and supportive, yes. Yeah. We recently had an event, and there was 3 generations of the Olds family in attendance.
Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? There's a boardroom here too, which is closed to the public usually, and that's just sensational too, to think of the people that may have sat around that table. You've got a good job, Dave.
Thank you.
Now we look around. The cars progress. 1942, the row of cars behind us. We have an original NASCAR over there as well. Before we close, what would be your favourite car in the museum? What's the one that means most to you?
That's like saying, who's your favorite child? You know, it depends on, different eras, different cars. Like the NASCAR over there is one of my favorites. The Baby Rio, you can't beat that. And we got a hearse back here, a real hearse. That is special.
You know what's amazing about the era of that NASCAR? They used to race those. They used to race those smoking cigarettes.
Is that right?
Yeah, I've got early NASCAR footage, and I wish I could use it as an overlay shot, but I can't. But there's a guy driving, and it could even be that very car because of the black tape around the wheels. I mean, I think they all did that. But in his right hand, holding onto the wheel at around 110 miles an hour, there's a cigarette smouldering.
That's amazing, isn't it? Well, they can't even advertise the races anymore around here. Yeah.
Dave, thanks for your time. Again, it's a museum here that you could spend many, many hours in. It's really amazing. It's just beautiful, and it's thanks to you. You're the salt here, the volunteer, the backbone, whatever we call you, Dave. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate your giving us some publicity.
Ransom Eli Olds. What an incredible guy. It's almost as though he was the grandfather to Henry Ford. His success started in the 1800s with steam machinery. He then evolved into automobiles, hence the name Oldsmobile. And it's incredible how that name has just stuck for many decades after, considering too that he sold up in 1904. In fact, Ransom sold all of his stock, and in late 1904 he started the company by the name of Rio. In 1908 General Motors came along and took on the Oldsmobile name. Don't forget to like Classic Restos on Facebook. Facebook.com/Classic Restos TV. And episodes can be seen at shannons.com.au. Well, there goes another Classic Restos. Thanks for riding along with me. For DVD sets and to contact the major sponsors, go to classicrestos.com.au. Classic Restos, proudly brought to you by Shannon's Insurance and thetradingpost.com.au.